When I was little, my mother used to tell me I could be anything I wanted. Astronaut, doctor, even president. What she didn't mention was that I could only do those things as long as I didn't marry a black man. That detail came later. Much later. Let me rewind. My name is Claire, born and raised in Savannah, Georgia. My mother is a white Southern belle turned bitter divorcee, and my father disappeared sometime around my 7th birthday. Poof. Vanished like the good manners my mother always preached but never practiced. I grew up in a house filled with floral curtains, antique furniture, and passive-aggressive sighs. My mother smiled at neighbors and whispered poison behind their backs. She believed in God, casseroles, and white picket fences, and also that every race should stay on their side of town. But she never said it out loud, not in those words. Racism in my household came dressed in pearls and perfume. It was the kind that hides behind a glass of sweet tea and a condescending smile. So, naturally, I grew up dreaming of something different. I moved to New York at 22. The city smelled like ambition and garbage, which felt oddly refreshing after years of suffocating in magnolia-scented hypocrisy. I got a job at a publishing house, started paying rent I couldn't afford, and met him. Marcus. 6'2", skin like velvet, voice like jazz, and the kind of eyes that made you want to spill secrets. We met at a coffee shop. He held the door open for me, and I spilled hot chai on my blouse like a rom-com cliché. He laughed. I apologized. We talked. And then we didn't stop. Marcus was kind, smart. He worked in education reform, helping inner-city kids navigate the nightmare of the public school system. My friends adored him. My coworkers envied me. And then came the day I introduced him to my mother. Spoiler alert, it did not go well. I flew her up for the weekend, booked her a nice hotel, took her to a Broadway show. She seemed in a good mood, smiling even, until Marcus walked into the restaurant. She looked at him, then at me, then back at him. Her smile froze like cheap Botox. He reached out his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Whitmore." She blinked, didn't take his hand, didn't speak, just sipped her wine like it might help her swallow her. Racism. The dinner was agonizing. She kept referring to Marcus as your friend and asking him questions like, "So, where are you really from?" And, "Did you grow up in a rough area?" I kicked her under the table 3 times. Marcus never flinched. He answered every microaggression with grace, while I considered stabbing myself in the eye with a butter knife just to end the night early. After we dropped her off at the hotel, I apologized profusely. He smiled and said, "I've been through worse." That night, I cried. He held me. And 2 months later, he proposed. I said yes. When I called my mother to tell her the news, there was a long pause. Then she said, "Claire, are you sure?" "Yes," I replied, smiling. "He's the love of my life." Another pause. Then, "You'll regret this." Click. No congratulations. No joy. Just a warning disguised as a curse. And that was the moment I knew. My mother didn't just disapprove. She despised him, not because of who he was, but because of what he looked like. I didn't speak to her again until the wedding. She showed up in black. Yes, black, like she was attending a funeral. I wore ivory lace. Marcus wore navy. We danced under string lights and toasted to forever. My mother sat in the back, arms crossed, face stone cold, like a statue carved from disappointment. She left before the cake. That should have been the end of it. But no, it was just the beginning. 6 months later, she started sending me articles, ridiculous articles. Things like interracial marriages have higher divorce rates and the struggles your mixed children will face. I blocked her email. She sent letters. I threw them away. Then she started calling from different numbers, leaving voicemails like, "I forgive you, Claire. We all make mistakes." And, "I'm praying for you to come to your senses." I didn't respond. Marcus told me to ignore her. But ignoring my mother is like ignoring a wasp stuck in your car. Eventually, it's going to sting you in the face. And sting me, she did. One afternoon, while I was at work, she showed up at our apartment building. I came home to find Marcus standing in the hallway, his jaw clenched, and my mother on the couch, arms folded, sipping tea like she lived there. "Your mother invited herself in," he said calmly. "I rang until someone buzzed me," she replied, smiling. "Is that a crime now?" "Yes," I said. "It is when you're trespassing on my marriage." She stood up, looked at me with those cold blue eyes, and said, "This isn't the life I raised you for." "No," I said. "It's better." She left without another word. But something in her face told me this wasn't over, and I was right. 2 weeks later, my mother called my boss. She told him I was unstable, that I'd been hospitalized for mental health issues, that I had a substance problem. None of it was true, but enough doubt was cast to get me called in for a chat. My boss asked if everything was okay at home. I laughed, and then cried, and then screamed into a pillow for an hour after I got home. Marcus held me again, told me we'd get through it, and I believed him. But a seed had been planted. My mother was dangerous, not just emotionally manipulative, not just racist, but vindictive. And now, she had declared war. That was the day I decided something important. Was done being the sweet daughter. I was done playing nice. It was time to stop surviving and start plotting. She wanted to destroy my marriage. Fine. I'd destroy her legacy, but not with yelling or fighting, with silence, strategy, and a little help from someone unexpected. You see, my mother had secrets. Big ones. And I was about to dig them up, one by one. Because if she thought she was the queen of manipulation, she hadn't met the daughter she raised. Yet. My mother once said that being a lady meant never raising your voice, so I decided I'd destroy her with a whisper. Let me tell you something about Southern women. We don't just inherit pearls and pie recipes. We inherit grudges. My mother once stopped speaking to her own sister for 2 years over a comment about canned green beans. So yeah, I knew exactly who I was dealing with, and now I had motivation. She'd tried to ruin my career with a phone call. She'd disrespected my marriage in ways I could no longer excuse as just her upbringing. She was the kind of person who set fires and blamed the match. So, I did what any rational, mildly unhinged daughter would do. I started digging. Step 1. I called my cousin Janine. Now Janine is the family gossip, the vault of secrets, the accidental witness to every whisper in every hallway since 1998. She also owes me $600 from a failed candle business, so I figured she'd talk. And she did. "Oh, honey," she said, as if I had just asked her if butter goes in the fridge. "You didn't know?" "Didn't know what?" "That your mom's been living off Grandma's money since the funeral, illegally." I blinked. "What do you mean illegally?" "Well, your Grandma's will had a clause. Said the house was to be sold and the profits split between your mom, Aunt Lila, and Uncle Don. But your mom said the market was bad and refused to list it. She's been living there rent-free, pocketing the life insurance and cashing the checks like the Queen of Savannah." A slow smile stretched across my face. "Well," I said, "wouldn't she just hate it if someone found out?" Janine giggled. "Claire, you didn't hear it from me." "Of course not." Step 2, I paid a visit to a lawyer. One of Marcus's friends. A real estate attorney with a knack for sniffing out inheritance fraud. I handed him every document Janine had forwarded. The will, the house deed, some sketchy tax filings she dug up from God knows where. I told him I wanted to keep things anonymous, quiet, like a Southern scandal wrapped in velvet. He smiled. "Oh, this is going to be fun." While he worked on the legal side, I handled the social one. See, my mother's greatest weapon was her reputation. She was the woman who chaired the church bake sale, who organized charity auctions, who once judged a Miss Peach Blossom pageant and cried during the talent portion. So I decided to tarnish her crown, slowly, publicly, but never directly. First, I created a fake Facebook account under the name Barbara P. with a profile picture of a woman who looked just judgmental enough to be real. Then I joined the local community groups my mother practically worshipped. Things like Savannah's Finest Ladies and Faith, Family, and Front Porches. And then I stirred the pot. One night, I posted this. "Is it true that a certain upstanding church member is withholding property from her own siblings against her late mother's wishes? Surely not the same woman who made such a fuss about interracial marriages last Easter brunch." The comments exploded. By morning, the gossip had legs. By afternoon, it had a full body and a purse full of receipts. My mother called me that evening, voice trembling with faux sweetness. "Claire, darling, have you been on Facebook lately?" "Oh, I hardly check it anymore," I said, stirring my tea. "Why?" "There's been some awful rumor about me. Completely false. Cruel, even." I took a slow sip. "That sounds terrible." She hesitated. "Claire, did you have anything to do with this?" "Mother," I said. "You raised me better than that." And hung up. Step 3. Invite the enemy closer. Yes, you heard me right. Sometimes, the best way to finish the job is to smile while doing it. So I did something unexpected. I invited her to dinner. Just her, me, and Marcus. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't know," she said. "Things have been so tense." "I know," I said. "That's why I want to clear the air." She paused, then agreed. She showed up with a pie. Marcus answered the door. She flinched when she saw him, like his skin offended her eyes. But she handed him the pie and forced a smile. We sat, ate, talked. I watched her pick at her food like it might be poisoned. I watched Marcus charm her despite everything, and I watched the cracks form. "I never meant to hurt you, Claire," she said at one point. "I just worry." "About what?" I asked. "That I'll be happy?" She didn't answer, just sipped her wine. After she left, Marcus turned to me. "What was that?" "Just setting the stage," I said. "Trust me." And he did. Because he knew me, and he knew when I was planning something. Then came the real kicker. Step 4. The banquet. Every year, our family's church hosts a founder's banquet. It's the biggest event of the season, all lace and pearls and judgmental side eyes. My mother usually co-hosts it, alongside her lifelong best friend/gossip enabler, Dolores. So I made sure to attend, in a red dress, with Marcus, arm in arm. We walked in like a scandal looking for a place to sit. Heads turned, mouths dropped. I smiled. And then I handed out envelopes. Real classy, one by one, to everyone on the board. Inside, a polite but anonymous summary of the inheritance fraud, complete with photocopies of the relevant documents, typed in Times New Roman, with bullet points. By dessert, the whispers were deafening. By coffee, Dolores had already accidentally spilled tea on herself and rushed to the bathroom. By the end of the night, my mother was pale, her hands shaking, and her smile gone. She didn't say goodbye, didn't even look at me, just walked out the side door like she was escaping a crime scene. Because she was. A week later, she was removed from the church board. Another week, and the lawyer sent a formal letter demanding the sale of the house and a split of the estate. Uncle Don and Aunt Lila were thrilled. Janine called me crying from laughter. She called me sobbing, she said. Said you ruined her life. Did I? I asked. I mean, yeah. Good. Now, you'd think that would be the end, right? Legal trouble, social humiliation, family shame. But my mother, she's stubborn. So she tried to retaliate. She wrote a letter. A full-on handwritten manifesto about how I was a terrible daughter, how Marcus had stolen me from her, and how she hoped I'd come crawling back after my little mixed-race fantasy fell apart. She sent it to everyone, family, friends, my boss, my in-laws. She even sent a copy to our old high school principal. It was vile, racist, unhinged, and she thought it would destroy me. But she underestimated something. Documentation. Because as soon as I got that letter, I scanned it, posted it online, and let the internet do what it does best. She was ripped apart, not just by strangers, but by people who had once admired her. People who had no idea the sweet church-going widow had so much venom behind her pearls. Sponsors dropped her. The charity she worked with issued a public statement condemning her views. And me? I just sat back and watched. I never raised my voice, never cursed her out, never stooped to her level, because I didn't have to. She built her throne on lies. I just pulled out the foundation, one brick at a time. Marcus, for his part, stayed gracious through it all. He told me he admired my patience. I told him it wasn't patience, it was precision. And now, my mother lives alone, in a small apartment, far away from the family home she tried to steal. Her friends avoid her church disowned her, and her letters now come once a month. Desperate, sad, begging. I don't answer, because I'm busy living a life she said would never last. Happy, in love, at peace, and married to the most beautiful black man in the world. Funny how things turn out. You know what they say about Southern women. We don't burn bridges, We detonate them, and then host a barbecue over the ashes. After the letter fiasco, my mother had become a local cautionary tale. People didn't mention her by name anymore. They just whispered phrases like, "You know, her," or "that woman who went off the rails." Her life had crumbled like a pound cake without butter, and I should have been satisfied. I should have packed away the drama and focused on my marriage, my home, my quiet peace. But something about the whole mess wouldn't sit still in my bones. Maybe it was the letter she sent my boss, trying to get me fired. Maybe it was the voicemail she left for Marcus's mother, calling her a manipulative Jezebel. Or maybe it was the fact that even after everything, being exposed, shunned, disgraced, my mother never once said sorry. Not to me, not to Marcus, not to herself. So no, I wasn't done. Not yet. Because you see, there was still one card left to play, and it was going to be the most satisfying one of all. It started with a wedding, not mine. Though Marcus and I had renewed our vows in private the month after the scandal, barefoot in our backyard, just us and the stars and two very smug dogs watching us. This wedding belonged to my cousin Trina. Sweet, naive Trina, who believed in prayer circles and Pinterest boards. She was marrying her college sweetheart. The theme was rustic garden romance, which basically meant burlap everywhere and bees in the lemonade. I had no intention of going, until I got the invitation. It was hand-lettered, cream paper, gold trim, and right there in the RSVP card, under table request, someone had written, "Seating Grandma with Aunt Lila, not Claire. Her husband makes her uncomfortable." I stared at it, laughed, and poured myself a drink. Then I called Trina. "Oh my God," she said, mortified. "Claire, I'm so sorry. That wasn't from me. My mom filled out that part. She was just trying to avoid drama." "You mean the kind of drama where a racist old woman ruins a wedding with her fragile ego?" Silence. Then, "Claire, please still come." "Oh, I'll be there," I said, and I hung up smiling. See, I had no problem with the seating chart, because I wasn't going to be sitting, I was going to be standing. Center stage, holding a microphone. Let me explain. Trina had asked me to give a speech, something light. Funny, sweet. She said I had a gift for words. She wasn't wrong. But she clearly had no idea what kind of speech I was about to deliver. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I perfected every word. I practiced in the mirror. I timed the pauses. I even rehearsed the eyebrow raises. Marcus thought I was overdoing it. I mean, "Haven't you made your point?" he asked one night while brushing his teeth. "I made a statement," I said. "This is the exclamation mark." He didn't argue, because he knew. I never stopped halfway. The day of the wedding arrived like something out of a Hallmark movie. Sunset over the Georgia hills. String lights everywhere. People in pastels sipping rosé like it was magic water. And there she was. My mother, sitting under a lace parasol like the villain in a Tennessee Williams play, wearing a soft pink suit that screamed, "I am delicate and misunderstood." She saw me. I saw her. She looked away first. Good. Marcus looked amazing in a navy suit that fit like it was tailored by angels. I looked like sin wrapped in satin. The ceremony passed without a hitch. Then came the reception, the first dance, and finally, the toasts. Trina's maid of honor got weepy. Her dad told a corny story. Everyone smiled and clapped. Then it was my turn. I took the mic and the air changed. "Good evening, everyone," I said with a bright smile. "I'm Claire, the bride's cousin, and I promise not to keep you from cake too long." A few chuckles. Easy crowd. I was asked to say a few words about love, about what it means, how it endures, and why it matters. I paused, looked straight at my mother. "Love," I said slowly, "isn't always accepted. Not by everyone. Sometimes the people who are supposed to support you will do everything in their power to sabotage you." The room went still. I saw my mother shift in her seat. Sometimes they'll lie, manipulate, spread rumors, even try to turn others against you, all because the person you love doesn't fit their idea of what's acceptable. I took a sip of water. And when that happens, you have a choice. You can shrink, or you can rise. You can stay silent, or you can speak. My voice didn't shake. I made sure of it. I chose to speak, to love louder, to live better, and to expose hate for what it is, fear dressed up in tradition. The silence was heavy, so I smiled. "Trina, I hope your love is loud. I hope it's inconvenient for small-minded people. And I hope you never let anyone tell you who you're allowed to hold hands with." I raised my glass. "To love. In all its forms." There was a pause, then applause. Real, loud, honest, except at one table, where one woman sat stone-faced, cracking. She didn't stay long after that. She left before dessert, claiming she had a migraine, but not before I slipped a little envelope into her purse. Inside, a family tree, with pictures, tracing our heritage back several generations, and right there, in black and white, no pun intended, was a birth certificate. Her great-grandmother, biracial. Listed clearly. In beautiful looping cursive. I had found it in the attic months ago, and saved it for the perfect moment. She had spent her life pretending her bloodline was pure as porcelain. Turns out, it was stained with the very thing she hated. Us. Didn't hear from her for a while after that. No calls, no letters. No holiday cards with passive-aggressive Bible verses. It was like she disappeared, until a year later, when she showed up on my porch. Hair thinner, eyes softer, no pearls, just plain clothes and a wrinkled envelope in her hands. I didn't open. The door right away, just stood there behind the glass, watching. She looked up, met my eyes, and for the first time in my life, she looked small. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I just wanted to give you this." She slid the envelope under the door and left. No speech, no tears, no guilt trip casserole. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside, a check, $50,000, and a note that said, "For the pain I caused, and for the love I never deserved." I showed it to Marcus. He read it twice, then shrugged. "What are you going to do with it?" I smiled. "I think I'll frame it." Then I called a contractor and finally built the art studio Marcus had always wanted, in the backyard, with light and music and love. Because some revenge comes in the form of pain. But the sweetest kind comes from thriving. And as for my mother, she moved to Florida, joined a small community group for seniors, started taking painting classes. Last I heard, she's dating a jazz musician. Black, of course. Life's funny like that.